Hey everybody, this is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com, and what I wanted to do was talk about one of Trump's first executive orders regarding private mortgage insurance. So I wanted to first put this into context, what he did, and then kind of talk about what I think about it. So when we talk about private mortgage insurance is an insurance that banks usually require if you put less than a 20% down payment. Because basically, think about it this way. If you're going to borrow $100,000 and I put up $5,000 and then borrow the other $95,000, then what I've done is put a 5% down payment. That means the bank is on the hook for 95% of the value of the house. So if the house drops more than 5%, so let's say I pay $5,000, the bank lends me $95,000. The house is currently worth $100,000. A couple years down the road, the house is now worth $90,000. I decide not to pay my mortgage and they take the house. Well, they're going to try to get their money back by selling the house. But because the house is only $90,000, they're not going to recoup the last $5,000 that they lent me. So the more they lend me, the more the bank is at risk of that kind of a situation happening. That's essentially what happened in 2008 in a mass scale. Houses dropped below the value of what people borrowed, so banks weren't able to recoup the money they lent, and a lot of them went out of business. So private mortgage insurance tries to protect against that by saying, well, if you default on your mortgage, private mortgage insurance is going to help cover the losses to the bank. And so if you put less than a 20% down payment, the risk is so much that the bank wants you to have this private mortgage insurance. That's a good thing, because the existence of private mortgage insurance makes it where banks are willing to give you a loan below a 20% down payment. Otherwise, they just wouldn't give you a loan unless you put a 20% down payment. So the fact that private mortgage insurance exists already saves you a lot of money upfront, as far as the upfront costs. And again, you can choose to pay your private mortgage insurance upfront and pay, let's say, $2,000 or $3,000 upfront and be done with it. Or you can choose to roll the expense of the private mortgage insurance into your loan. Okay, which makes it a little bit more expensive over time, but you're not paying that $3,000 up front. You may be paying an extra $20 a month. Okay, cool. Now, what happens is that the government gets involved in certain loans called FHA loans, the Federal Housing Administration. Now, what FHA does is they target neighborhoods that are not necessarily in the best of shape. Think of most of New York City at one point, Harlem, all of Brooklyn. All these places were FHA redevelopment zones, where the FHA would subsidize the loan already. So the way it would do that is the FHA actually guarantees the loan. They say, you know what? If you develop in these neighborhoods, you build up condos, whatever, basically gentrify the neighborhood, we will guarantee the loans, because we just want these places to be rebuilt. And so they're already subsidized. Because of the FHA guarantee, they're getting lower interest rates, there's more liquidity for these loans. So these loans are already cheaper because of FHA's involvement. But FHA has its own sort of private mortgage insurance fee that it charges as well. Now, in the last few days of Obama's administration, so this is not something that's been in place for a long time and has saved a lot of people money. This is something that literally got slipped in at the last minute by Obama, an executive order that lowered that fee for specifically FHA loans. The problem is, the less you pay for private mortgage insurance, if you pay below what you're supposed to pay for mortgage insurance, and what you're supposed to pay for any insurance, well, there's statistical models and mathematical models to kind of calculate that based on the probability of the risk, the amount you would spend if that risk occurred versus what that money is worth today, all that stuff. So again, that's above my head. But if you pay less than you're supposed to based on the math, then what happens is that there's a potential risk that there's not enough money in the pool to cover all those expenses. Okay, so basically imagine you have another housing crisis, there's not enough money in that private mortgage insurance pool to cover all these banks' losses. What happens? The banks are going out of business and they start asking for a bailout again. So you run that risk. So that's not necessarily the most sound policy, especially since just the existence of FHA is already sort of lowering the cost of a mortgage to begin with. And this particular change in policy was estimated to be saving people like $500 in their first year of their mortgage. So this is not like necessarily a huge difference. And if $500 over 1 year makes a difference between your ability to buy a house or not buy a house, you're probably not in a financial situation where you should be taking the risk of buying a house. Okay, and then especially homeownership is a huge responsibility that comes with a lot more cost than just the cost of every month. You're talking about maintaining the property, having to pay for all the utilities. There's a lot of things. There's a lot of responsibilities that you suddenly, and costs that come into your life from owning a house that you don't realize until you own the house. So if $500 makes a difference, then maybe you shouldn't buy the house quite yet. Doesn't mean you can't rent a house or you can't find a better living situation or look for a house and maybe in a place with lower housing prices. But again, at the end of the day, you don't want to take on financial responsibility that you may not necessarily be ready to handle. That only makes the potential risk greater of a systemic situation. So what Donald Trump did is just do an executive order to repeal the executive order that Obama slipped in at the very end of his presidency. Okay, so basically, it almost seems to me that this executive order was really just slipped in there at the last minute, so that way Trump would repeal it, so that way they can use that as political leverage against them. Because if this was a legit policy that Obama wanted to put in place, why didn't he do it a long time ago? So there's no reason why suddenly that was just some idea he had at the very last minute, and there isn't a lot of politics around the FHA private mortgage insurance. So there's no reason why, again, politically he wouldn't have done it beforehand. So overall, it seems to smell and smack of pure politics to me. Now, I'm generally not a fan of executive orders, but at the end of the day, this is an executive order in response to another executive order. So it's more like you're undoing an executive order. So overall, I'll have to give Trump points on this one as a good policy. Again, people should pay what needs to be paid to make sure that insurance can cover the risk that insurance is covering. And a lot of policy shouldn't be made by executive orders, but this isn't policy. This is undoing policy that has been made by executive orders. Although I don't expect that to be consistently what Trump does. I do expect that Trump probably will be making policy via executive orders. He already is with healthcare, which is not necessarily a good thing either. So I'll make a separate video on that. My name is Alex Merced from alexmerced.com. Have a great day and enjoy.
Thank you for enjoying a video by Alex Merced, bringing you principled, thoughtful, and accessible commentary on today's issues. Show your support by becoming a monthly patron at patreon.com/alexmerced. There are special benefits depending on the level of your monthly gift. Find great deals on web hosting, podcast hosting, and more over there at libertydeal.info. Also check out Alex Merced's recommended reading list at books.alexmerced.com, and while you're there, pick up some other great stuff at amazon.com. For other options for support, such as one-time PayPal donations and Bitcoin donations, go to support.alexmerced.com. Make sure to follow Alex Merced on these other social media platforms.